Safety first, kid. That broke. Safety first, kids. Welcome back, everyone. It is That Car Chick. Welcome to rebuilding a cylinder head for dummies. Now, a lot of the processes that I'm going to be doing in this video will probably be frowned upon, such as sandpaper on the cylinder block and also using a drill to lap the valves in. You can do the old-fashioned way and sit there with a valve lapping stick like a caveman, but I'm going to show you the efficient way that you probably shouldn't use on your Ferrari engine rebuild. But if you're a simple broke commoner like me and you're just rebuilding a standard French car engine, you can use this method and it's not going to do any harm. It's just quicker and it will literally give you the same results. Okay, starting off by what you're going to need. Of course, your cylinder head. That would be a great start for rebuilding a cylinder head. You also want some sandpaper, and you can either use water with the sandpaper, or I recommend using some lubrication, just so the sandpaper isn't as rough on the cylinder head, and so it is a little bit softer and gives it that smooth finish rather than digs in and creates loads of like craters basically. You're also going to want some cloths just to wipe things down as you're going. You're also going to want a wire wheel for cleaning up the surfaces like this. Depending on how bad your cylinder head actually is, you're going to want fine grinding paste, or if it's really crappy and loads of stuff stuck underneath the valves, you're also going to want a coarse grinding paste. However, I don't know if you can tell, my cylinder head doesn't look too bad, so I'll only be using the fine grinding paste. You're going to want all new valve stem oil seals, a socket and a hammer for gently tapping the valve stem oil seals on. Again, probably a method that will be frowned upon, but it works. A bit of grease, so putting the collets back on is going to be a lot easier. Of course, you're also going to want your valves. On this one, I have 4 cylinders with 2 valves on each, 1 exhaust and 1 intake valve on each cylinder, so I'm going to need 8 valves in total. You're also going to want a little screwdriver or something to put the collets back on with, because we can reuse the collets. Just don't lose them, because then you're going to have to order more and it's literally a pain. They can fling anywhere, so just be careful with it. So in this video, I will be reusing the valve springs and the valve spring caps. However, if you do want to, you can also replace them just to make it all shiny brand new. You'll also want a drill if you're going to be using my method and using the drill to lap in the valves, which I know is massively frowned upon. Don't comment me in the comments, I swear to God. Comment hate if you want, I really don't care. And also because normally what you can do is put the valve straight into the drill and drill it like this, but as you can tell, these valves are quite almost level with the actual cylinder head surface. If you just get some rubber tube that you can then put into the drill to then put the valve on the other side of the tube and use the tube as like an extension. And you're also going to want a little magnetic tray just to put your collets in, just so you don't lose them, because it is a nightmare. Trust me, when you lose it, it's a nightmare. You'll also want personal protective equipment such as gloves, just to protect your hands from the oil. And when you are cleaning off the cylinder head with a wire drill and also sandpaper, you're going to want these fugly looking goggles just to protect your eyes so shit doesn't get in your eyes. We're not here to look cool, we're here to stay safe. That's what she said. And if you have long hair, make sure to tie it up just so your hair doesn't get caught in whatever you're doing. Okay, so before we do any sort of cleaning or anything, we're going to take the valves out and I'm going to show you how. Do not you worry. Oh, I did also forget to mention the fact that you're going to need a valve spring compressor to also take the valves out. That is another thing you need, a valve spring compressor. You can't do this job without a valve spring compressor. Okay, so we're going to take out the valve springs one by one, and what you need is this little end that matches the diameter of your valve spring cap, which you then will use to push the spring together, take the collets out, take the spring off, and take the valve out. So this flat bit goes on the base of the valve, and the bit with the little cool golden thing attached to it goes on the valve spring cap. And then you just want to wind it in, making sure it's aligned properly. So making sure that the tool is nice and straight, you're then going to just wind the tool in until you're then able to see the collets. We're then going to grab our magnetic tray and our magnetic screwdriver, and we're going to take the collets out nice and carefully and place them into this magnetic tray so we don't lose it. And these here are the collets I'm talking about. As you can tell, they can get very easily lost. Then once you have taken the collets out, you're going to slowly unwind the spring compressor tool, which then obviously you'll see the spring release. Once the spring has been released, you can then remove your spring and your valve spring cap, place them safely, and then just push the valve out, and out it comes out the other side. I'll show you guys one more time, and then I'm just going to fast forward because you don't want to watch me take out all 8. We're going to be here all night. Again, place the big flat end on the base of the valve. Wind the tool in carefully so it is very evenly seated on the valve spring cap, and then just wind it in just far enough so you're able to see the little collets. Then get your screwdriver and take these nasty little buggers off. Put it in a magnetic tray so you don't lose them. And just pop the other one out as well. Very slowly unwind your tool, take your spring off and your cap, and then just push the valve out for the other side. And look at all that sooty, oily mess on the back of that. Fast forward. Okay, there we go. I have now removed all of the valves, and as you can see here, these are all the valve stem oil seals, which you also need to remove so you're able to change them, as taking the valves in and out can damage them, which then creates an oil leak and then basically will make your engine go kaboom. So you want to make sure that you always replace these. And to take these out, you can very simply grab your socket and place it on one of them and just give it a good wiggle, and it will loosen it right off for you. Again, grab your socket, place it on one of the valve stem oil seals, give it a good old wiggle, and it should take it right out. Do the same for all 8. Okay, now that you've gotten all of your valve stem oil seals out, all of your valves and your springs and your collets and your valve caps out, it is now time for the slightly messier bit, which is cleaning the cylinder head up. So we're just gonna lie this down so I can easily clean it, and it's time to put on our fugly protection. I'm gonna grab the drill and the wire brush, and away we go. Okay, there we go. Once we have cleaned off all of the sealant that was there, it is time to get your lubricant and a bit of cloth, give it a clean, and then we're going to go in with the sandpaper to smooth it all down and make it a smooth surface again, ready for resealing. Spray a bit of lube onto my cloth, and then just go around and give it a clean. And once that side has been all cleaned off, you now want to go on the other side here and sandpaper the surface down. There will be some negative comments about me using sandpaper, but as long as you use really fine grit sandpaper and a bit of lube just to give it that nice smooth finish, it won't actually do any damage. And you also want to use something flat, such as the box to one of the valves, just to make sure that it is being kept level and that your fingers aren't putting like indents in it, if that makes sense. I don't need these fugly goggles for this bit anymore. And grab something nice and flat, get a bit of lubrication, give it a good old spray on, and sand. Okay, so once you have the cylinder head looking nice and shiny, resurfaced like this, it is now time for the interesting bit, which is lapping the valves in. Okay, so you will also notice that there are 2 different sizes of valves. The smaller one being the inlet valve and the bigger one being the exhaust valve. Sorry, my mistake. This is way later in filming, but I've realized I've just said a mistake. The bigger valve is the inlet valve and the smaller valve is the exhaust valve. My bad. Now, you'd have to be a real dummy to mess these up because, as you can see, where they are supposed to be seated is also 2 different sizes, just like so. And as I said, because this is an 8-valve engine, of course, there's going to be 8 valves, 4 exhaust valves, and 4 inlet valves. Now, you also want to get your grinding paste out, get your rubber tube, and your drill. Of course, I will say this again, this method can sometimes be frowned upon. However, like I say, unless you want to sit there like a caveman for ages, this method is perfectly acceptable. You just can't put so much pressure on it. You just need to go nice and gentle, as if you're doing the hand motion, and there won't be no damage done. It will just be one hell of a lot quicker. You want to grab a valve. I'm going to start with an inlet valve. Of course, it doesn't actually matter what valve you start with. Just when you lap them in, make sure do not mix the valves up, as of course you seat each valve with each valve seat, and if you mix up the actual valves, they won't be seated properly as you would have lapped it in. Say you were lapping it in this hole and then you put it in this hole. This won't be lapped up for this hole, it will be lapped up for this hole here. So once you have lapped it in, make sure you do not mix your valves up, if my rambling makes any sense. So I like to just lay them out in front of me and just hope for the love of God that nobody touches this table. And like I said, I'm going to be starting with cylinder number 2, the inlet valve. So you want to place your inlet valve in. So what's going to happen when I put the inlet valve in is that I'm going to be putting this tip of the inlet valve where the collets are supposed to be sitting. I'll put this into the rubber bit at the end. So the rubber bit holds the valve like this. And then I'm going to be putting equal pressure onto the valve, making sure that I'm not holding the drill like this, but nice and straight and even. And I'm just going to be putting gentle pressure on it and doing a forwards and backwards motion like this, as if I was actually doing this with my hands and moving it up and down and lapping it in that way. Okay, so like I said, putting your inlet valve in, put the rubber hose on the other side of the inlet valve where the collet would sit. And now what you also want to do to ensure that your valve seats properly is to use a grinding paste. Because my valve seats aren't actually that badly pitted, I don't need to go in with a coarse. I can just go straight in with a fine grinding paste. However, if your valve seats are really pitted, you want to go in with a coarser one just to help smooth it out, and then go for a very smooth touching finish with the fine grinding paste. Again, because mine ain't that bad, I'm just going to go straight in with the fine grinding paste, and that is up to my professional judgment. Of course, if you aren't sure, always go in with the coarse first and then the fine grinding paste. Now, you just want to get a tip on your finger like this and just place this grinding paste around where the valve would seat. Once you have your grinding paste on your valve seats, you're going to want to grab your drill, put even pressure on it like this. As you can see, I'm putting very gentle pressure on it, and just spin it up and just go out and back in, out, back in, just like that. As you can see, I'm doing it very gently, very carefully and slowly, and making sure I put even pressure on it and not holding the drill up or down like this, but holding the drill nice and straight, going nice and gentle with the drill and just moving in and out. Every once in a while, you just want to stop and either add more paste or reposition the paste that's already there. And again, nice and gently. And when you're doing this, you're going to hear that grinding noise as well. As soon as that grinding noise starts to die down, you want to add a little bit more paste or just reposition the paste that's already there back onto where the valve is actually going to be seating. And again, gentle pressure and spin her up. And then every once in a while, what you actually want to do is remove the valve. You then want to clean the valve up, as well as the valve seat where you have been grinding down the valve seat. And what you want to be looking for here is a valve seat that is very minimally or not at all pitted. You want the valve seat and the actual valve to be as smooth as possible so it seats properly and creates a proper seal. If it doesn't create a proper seal, this could mean that it will get a misfire because there will be combustion pressure that is leaking through these tiny pits. Although they might seem tiny, it can actually make a massive difference with the amount of pressure that an engine is always operating under. As this is a new valve, it is very easy to actually seat the valve to the valve seat. As you can tell, there are no pits on the valve because it is brand new. What you want to look for is, rather than having a really shiny surface, where the valve seat is, you will see that the silver is slightly more dull where it's been seating. This part here, where the valve is seating, is a slightly more dull grey than this very shiny silver where it hasn't been grinded against. And that is exactly what you want it to look like. And like I said, in terms of the valve seat, you want it to be very minimally or not at all pitted. I can still see a few pits around mine, so I'm just going to go in with a grinding paste one more time just to smooth it out a little bit more. Add a little bit more grinding paste to where the valve is going to seat. Gentle pressure and in and out motion. Okay, and I'm now happy with how the valve is seated. It is very minimally pitted and very smooth, and the actual valve looks nice and smooth as well. So I'm happy with how this is going to be seated. Now you just repeat the process on the remaining 7 valves. Again, put it on the end of the tube, nice even pressure while it's spinning with an in and out motion to replicate what the actual valve will be doing, which is going in and out. Grinding paste if you're running out of it, just to constantly be hearing that grinding noise, and do the rest for all of the other 7 valves until the seat is very minimally or not at all pitted, very smooth, and until the seat here is no longer shiny but a dull silver. Then you'll know all of them are seated. Okay, and once you have finished lapping all of the valves in and you have absolutely cleaned all of the surface on both sides, you are now ready to start the rebuild process by putting all of the valves, the springs and the valve caps and the collets back in and rebuilding it. So the process is basically exactly the same as what you did to actually take the valves out. So we're going to start by putting the new oil seals onto their places. So the socket trick is, if you grab a valve stem oil seal and you put it on its place nice and evenly and square, then you get a socket and you put the socket very evenly and very flatly against the valve stem oil seal and grab a little hammer and just hammer it on. Very gently, tap it on. And when the tone changes, you know, it's at the bottom. And there you go, you've put on a valve stem oil seal. Do that to the others. Once you have put all of your valve stem oil seals in, you want to be really careful when you are putting the valves back in, because if you just shove it in, it could actually damage the oil seal here and you'll get an oil leak into your cylinders. Now, to put the valves in, you want to grab your correct valve. So I've got an inlet valve here and we're just going to put it into the inlet hole. And as you can see here, it has very gently poked out on the other side. Now to rebuild it, reverse the process. So grab your spring and place the spring on top of where the valve is sitting and grab your cap and place the cap on top. Now you want to grab your spring compressor tool and unwind it. Again, flat end onto the base of the valve, and the end with the actual tool is going to sit on top of the valve cap. You want to gently spin it in, making sure the cap stays on it. As you can probably see, it's already fallen off a couple of times. And just align it and then compress the spring and just compress it far enough so that you can see where the collets are going to be sitting. And now for the really horrible fiddly bit, which is a good reason to also have a little bit of grease. Like this, I just have some multi-purpose grease because it will help you in this process. So you want to grab a little bit of grease onto your screwdriver, put the collet onto the screwdriver, and also put a little bit of grease onto the inside of the collet, as this will help the collet just stick to the valve enough so that you're able to release the spring and they stay in place. Once you've got a tiny bit of grease on the inside of the collet, place the collet onto your screwdriver and fiddle it in. And grab another one, do the same process, put a little bit of grease on the inside of the collet and use some grease to help stick the collet to the screwdriver and place it in, making sure it's of course the right way round, with the skinny bit of the collet towards the base of the valve and the thicker bit at the top. Squeeze them both in, and when both collets are properly seated, slowly unwind the tool, ensuring that the collets do not pop out. And there you have it. You have successfully placed your first valve back in. And you just want to make sure, just have a look that the collets are actually sitting properly, because what can happen if one of the collets are sitting slightly wonky, it can pop out. If it doesn't pop out by the time you rebuild the head, it might pop out when the engine is running and cause extreme engine damage. And then I'll just complete the rest on a fast track. Okay, and there we have it. You have now rebuilt a cylinder head with all of your new valves and your springs and your spring caps and new valve stem oil seals back into the head and ready to go back onto the car. And here it is from this side, the part that is going to be going into the cylinders, all the valves sitting on top of the pistons and on top of the chambers and things like that. But there you have it. That is how to rebuild a cylinder head on a car, if you've ever wondered what the process is, or if you're looking at doing it yourself. Again, I know there might be some backlash about the kind of methods that I used to rebuild the cylinder head. I don't care. There you have it. I hope you all enjoyed watching this video, and I hope you enjoy rebuilding any engine you may be rebuilding if you are watching this video to learn how to do it. And as always, I hope you learned something new today, and I hope this video was worth your time. Thank you very much for watching. As always, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like down below and leave any comments if you have any questions or want to know more information about what tools you need and how to rebuild a cylinder head. If you did enjoy this video and you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and smash that notification bell so you can be the first to watch my videos. And if you do have anything else you want to see on the channel, please feel free to leave it down below in the comments. Again, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed rebuilding your cylinder, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. That is it for now. I'll see you all next time, but for now, peace.